Architecture shapes our built environment. It is more than a combination of art and design fulfilling a utilitarian purpose. It is a reflection of a society's values and aspirations. At its most powerful, architecture can be transformative, not only creating spaces that inspire, challenge and delight, but can forge a path for society at large and provide a tangible vision of what is possible. Across Australia, architects, urban planners and community leaders are using community-focused design to solve real-world problems and create more sustainable and inclusive environments. Join us as we explore how design can create vibrant and healthy local communities that foster connection and local engagement. On this episode of Community Designs, we're headed 2.5 hours north of Melbourne to the regional Victorian town of Glenrowan. Home to just over 900 people, Glenrowan is renowned for its connection to legendary bushranger Ned Kelly. Made famous or infamous, depending on who you ask, Glenrowan is the town where Ned Kelly was finally captured in 1880. Ned and his gang were outlawed after they murdered 3 police officers at Stringybark Creek in 1878. Glenrowan today still has a strong connection with Ned Kelly. From the local shops, cafes, street signs, pubs and museums to the site of the siege, Glenrowan town is all about Ned. During peak times, having around 500 tourists pass through every day, Glenrowan desperately needed a central location for people to begin their Ned Kelly journey. The idea of the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub was to create an immersive and contemporary tourism experience to bring Ned Kelly's bushranger history to life. Let's find out how this small town came together to build an iconic landmark that is a tribute to every party involved, from the architects and council to the historians and the Glenrowan community itself. Stay tuned as we unveil the vision, the challenges and the triumphs behind the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub.
The Ned Kelly Discovery Hub is a signpost project for the Rural City of Wangaratta. It's been in planning for many years.
In the early days, we had a lot of community consultation to shape the way that this project looked.
And we finally come to the culmination of what we see behind us here. So a great story to tell about Ned Kelly and the siege here at Glenrowan.
When the funding finally became available, it became a reality, and the outcome has been fantastic.
Back in 2020, we received a $3.5 million grant from the state government to implement a scope of works that was looking at telling Glenrowan's story, the township story, and then also having an architectural building that was significant to our township.
I was engaged from day one. I was one of the project managers that do a lot of the council bigger building projects. We then went through a process of working with the heritage consultants. It's a national heritage site here, and as we worked through that process, then we went out and appointed an architect to commence the design process.
Matt Foley runs Content Studio, the firm responsible for the design of the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub. Let's find out from Matt about how the project came together.
The way that the project was set up, I put together the team who worked on it. That includes the interpretive designers, and it was very much a collaborative effort. Convergence Design worked with us, and we were involved in making sure that the heritage story was also integrated into the architecture. That was really important to us.
The history of the site is the main parkland area here in the main street of Glenrowan, but it overlooks the siege site of Anne Jones's Inn. This is where the story of Ned Kelly really came to light with the big shootout that happened here back in the 1880s.
We're located adjacent to the siege site in Glenrowan, where there's significant history and storytelling of past practices of the Glenrowan story.
We wanted it to be a state-of-the-art project for the region. We wanted it to highlight the Glenrowan community and how Glenrowan came about and the Glenrowan story.
I think the community here were looking for something that would act as a real landmark tourism opportunity, and here is where all of those pieces of that story come together. This is where the story ended, and there was an incredible opportunity to play a hand in telling those final moments of the story.
Everyone knows the story of Ned Kelly. Everyone is familiar with the iconography of the armour and the helmet, but when you actually go to Glenrowan, it's not obvious that this is the place of this significant site. So we wanted to create something which was significant, something which is a bit of a landmark, or something that we wanted to represent in the architecture and the story and the interpretation that we brought to the project.
When people came to Glenrowan, they didn't know how to experience the site itself. When you look around prior to the hub being here, people would come down, they'd see a sign, not know how to follow the route around. And so therefore this hub actually now gives them a starting point, and then they can go and experience the rest of the site themselves.
So there was a very clear need here for a central point to direct tourists to. Let's find out about the community needs and the brief from the Wangaratta Council.
The brief from the Rural City of Wangaratta was to design a building which was going to be a gateway to the story of the Kelly siege in Glenrowan, but also a gateway to the broader Kelly story.
The design brief was something that we wanted unique, that people would drive off the freeway and come and stop and have a look and spend some time in town.
It's central to Glenrowan, so having the visitors through that can still experience everything in the township that has to offer, and while also having a play space. So it's a place to stop, relax, have a picnic, buy something from the local shop and enjoy the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub.
One of the concepts behind it and one of the requests behind it was to increase tourist visitation. So that's one of the benefits coming into the town itself, so that more visitors come in, they spend more money in the local businesses. But also too, we have our visitor services here as well, so we're also then encouraging people to go to other parts of our municipality and experience what we will have to offer here.
Because not only are we building something for visitors, we're actually building something for the town. So we always had this idea, you know, what happens at 5 p.m. when all the visitors have gone on their ways and this building is there. They've got this beautiful viewing platform. There's no reason why they couldn't go up there on a Friday and have a couple of beers after work or something. So you are also making something which is a little community facility.
The Ned Kelly Discovery Hub was brought to life first of all by the design of the building in response to the siege site. So it had a vision to overlook and enable people to get up and see the siege site from a distance. That was the basic vision of the building.
The architect was given a pretty good open brief. He was the one that came up with the design of the building, the cylindrical design. One of the things we wanted to do in the design was have an elevated area with 360-degree views of the town where you could stand in the middle, look at a map and then go to all the sites or Ned Kelly's had an involvement with: Stringy Bark Creek, Wallen, Mount Morgan, the siege site, the railway station.
We worked with interpretive designers, Convergence Design. They primarily were our partners in putting together the content and the context, and they went through the process of reviewing all of the historical information which was available to us. And that's going through archives, it's talking to local residents, talking to people who are experts around the Kelly story, lots and lots of different sources. Jenny and Deborah from Convergence pulled that all that information together and put it into a brief, which we then presented back as a team to council, and that was discussed with local residents, the local community.
So our architect who engaged produced 2 3D renders of the future building, and council then went back to the community to discuss through what they wanted to see within their community and what best told the story of the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub.
When we were doing the conceptual designs for here, we had a community open day for them to come in, vote on which design that they would like to see. This design came up as the winning design.
And from there, the community has chosen the construction that you can see behind us today.
With so many tourists passing through Glenrowan every year, it was crucial to not only establish a central point for the museum, but also bring more people to the whole region.
Tourism is very important to Glenrowan. We have a number of businesses within the precinct, obviously, that cater to that tourism market. We've got the museum next door, we've got Kate's Cottage, King Valley Popcorn, and the Vintage Cafe. So they all rely on that tourism trade coming through to make that business happen. So for us, helping them with that is very important.
It was very important that what we did improved visitation numbers to the town as a whole. So yes, we want people to go to the building, but it's just as important that they stop, they have a look, go to the toilets, run around the park, get a coffee or a burger or get a meal. And the idea that we're creating another one, which adds to that suite of destinations, just another reason to go to Glenrowan.
Glenrowan is probably our main tourist destination here in the rural city of Wangaratta. We have a population of over 30,000 in the rural city. Glenrowan is the gateway to Wangaratta, so we believe that the starting point here with this Ned Kelly Discovery Hub is going to be a benefit for everybody.
Join us after the break as we dig deeper into the construction process and learn how they lowered on the 10-ton roof. See you soon. Welcome back to Community Designs. On today's episode, we're in Glenrowan at the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub. We're going to hear from the architect and the project managers about the complexities of building with so many steel beams.
So the construction process of this project was obviously we had to go through an element of detailed design prior to going out for a procurement to engage a contractor to construct. We decided to keep the shop drawings in-house through that design period, and that provided a lot of detail around that structural steel and helped that fabricator of producing 3D models of what that structural steel would look like in advance.
Being cylindrical, it's very complex. There's not a straight bit of steel in there, there's all angles and every direction, as well as helixes that are holding the whole structure up.
You've got a cylinder, you've got a circular staircase, and we've twisted it. And you see this double helix spiral running through the building, which looks very resolved as a finished product, but to actually create that structural complexity involved about 3,000 or 4,000 bits of individual steel. It's like a Meccano set. That all gets fabricated off-site, and then it gets shipped on a truck, and each one of those pieces gets put together.
Most designs you use modelling of the steel structure, and the shop drawings of the steel structure is done by the appointed builder.
We worked with some fantastic steel shop drawers called Planet, who literally drew the building out one-to-one in each one of those steel members.
Which then gave the builder confidence when we went out to tender that this can be built. They know exactly the tonnage of steel. They can fix the cost in at that ton at the time.
The steel fabricator follows those drawings, drills every single screw hole or bolt hole where it's indicated on that drawing, and then fingers crossed, it all comes to site on half a dozen semi-trailers.
The site's pretty constrained. Within that constraint, you couldn't just bring everything to site and say, I want this bit, this bit, and this bit. It had to be done.
Now, to make that work simply and not involved each one of those steels being cut or welded or fabricated on site to fit, we had to document that with incredible accuracy.
The final piece of the steel structure was the roof. It was sitting on about 10 tonne or 10.2 tonne. It was fabricated on the ground. It's 21 metres in diameter, and then they picked it up in one piece and put it up on top of the wall structure, and it fitted pretty much with the exception of one bolt hole. Every bolt hole fitted into position. That was a day of holding your breath, sitting over on the bridge with the camera watching and putting it all there, but it all went together really well. Once that complexity of the build went, everything else sort of flowed in nicely.
I think it all was a relatively smooth process. It's quite difficult to build in rural Victoria because there's only a certain number of trades, so there were some complexities around getting people to site. But really I think considering what we've built and what we've delivered, it was actually relatively smooth.
Last year was an extremely wet year in the winter, so there's a lot of wet delay times at the critical part of the build where we were doing, the builder was doing footings and earthworks and that sort of stuff. We also engaged an archaeologist to be on site whilst the builder was doing any earthworks to inspect for any artefacts or findings in that process. So that all puts a delay in the build.
So aside from a few delays with the construction process, there were no major dramas with bringing the Discovery Hub to life. Let's move inside this wonderful building and find out about the process of bringing together so many different stories.
So we found ourselves with this layer underneath which enabled an interpretation delivery, so a museum approach to the story. It wasn't going to just be a visitor centre, it was going to be a number of rooms that were able to tell the story of how the events that occurred before the siege happened, why they happened, who was involved, what tension occurred to make the siege moment happen and how the bushrangers responded.
The Ned Kelly story is part of the Australian narrative. Everyone has an opinion on it, you know, love him or hate him. He's Vegemite to a lot of people. It's, is he a hero, is he a villain? And that was something that was really amazing to dig into as a designer and as a design team.
There were a lot of barriers in delivering the interpretation into this building because the imagery that the curators were sourcing were really low res, so we didn't have some really hero images that we could profile. It was very text heavy, so there was a lot of archives and records that we could promote, but they weren't going to look great in interpretation. My job was to work alongside our marketing and comms team and our branding identification and connect all the dots so that it was what we were aspiring this building to be, was a state-of-the-art contemporary representation of the story. It really came together when we got the designer in to continue to connect all the dots. Our vision as Rural City of Wangaratta, the researchers' understanding and delivery of the story, but it was really threading all those people together to make sure that we got this sort of peaceful but measured delivery which captured the tension and the darkness of the story at the same time.
So as you walk in the front door, you start to see the visual display around the external walls of the centre inside. It's very pictorial storytelling of every element of the Ned Kelly story. And then you come into a central room which has 6 video screens within the room and 6 multimedia displays. They've got floor access activation points which start each of the stories around the 6 screens as a one screen production. Once you go through that, you come back out of the room and you come around the external walls and you see a big charged glass screen. There's also a storyline of the event, which starts from the first shot fired and that sort of stuff. When the video production fires up the screens, you get an 8-minute story of the siege itself. Once that screen's finished, the lights all come on, the blinds come up, you look out over the Siege Street site through a viewing window.
Coming up, we're going to see what people think of the finished product. See you soon. Welcome back to Community Designs. The goal of the Discovery Hub was to be a central point for the Ned Kelly story and to bring in tourists to the township. Let's see if it lived up to its expectations.
I think the project has definitely been successful, and we're already seeing that with our increase in tourism throughout Glenrowan itself, having already doubled our forecast estimate of what tourism we would receive throughout Glenrowan in a 1.5 month period as opposed to a 12-month period. I would definitely say it's a successful project.
Seeing it all come together is an incredible privilege. It's not often you get to say that, you know, you were part of a team that designed a brand for Ned Kelly.
I think it's been amazing, and we can see that now by the amount of people that are coming through the hub. It's a continuous flow, a lot more than what we ever expected it to be, and a lot more than what Glenrowan's had in the past.
It's taken nearly everyone in council to work on it. Like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It's certainly taken a council to raise that Discovery Hub, so it has been very successful.
I believe we hit the mark with the interpretation delivery of the building, and we responded to the building and its needs in interpretation, and I think we got it pretty spot on.
I think the project's been incredibly successful. The visitation numbers since it opened have been through the roof. We designed for a certain number. I think, you know, you can fit about 50 inside, 50 upstairs and 50 in the landscape. First day was 3,500. So bursting at the seams.
And ensure that we get those come through not only once but come back again and bring others back. I think that's the measure of success.
We've had a really positive reaction within the local community as well as tourists coming through. People were travelling from Melbourne to Albury and just stopping in Glenrowan to see and use the facilities and visit the shops and the centres as they go through. So it's really impressive that it's got Glenrowan out there on the map.
Businesses are reporting that they're seeing increases in trading. We're seeing increases of tourists come through here inquisitive about what the building is and wanting to explore a little bit more. There is something to take away from this for everyone.
From the double helix in the architecture to the incredible multimedia displays inside, the Discovery Hub is instantly an iconic building. Let's find out what people love most about it.
My favourite part about this project was seeing the community engagement and the community selecting this 3D render of what it will be today. And if you were to pull up the 3D render against a photograph of this building today, it's pretty impressive how accurate it has been constructed.
The original concept that was developed before we even put pen to paper is what's built behind us. A lot of times they get it close. Content Studio got this exactly spot on.
So this building is experienced in the round. And there's lots of different ways that you can approach it. I could be driving from Melbourne and heading to Sydney, and I have one basically image of that building when I drive past. If I'm coming in the other direction from Albury-Wodonga driving down to Melbourne, I see another part of that building. If I'm going over the rail bridge, I see it from an elevated position. If I'm catching the train between Albury-Wodonga and Melbourne, I have another little image. And I love the fact that this building, every time that you look at it and every direction that you approach it, has something different to offer. I've loved working with an interpretive team, and I've loved basically designing a building which incorporates a story.
The thing I love most of all about the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub is the fact that it tells a story. But you can't go past the aesthetics. Have a look at it. It's one of the most magnificent buildings ever built in the rural city of Wangaratta.
It's architecturally designed, spot in the look and feel. It doesn't obtrude the natural landscapes that go around it, and it just fits lovely into it. We should be really proud of what's been created here.
Been involved with such an iconic project in a town where I only grew up 4 miles away. Been in the town all my life, or going through the town all my life. Have an input with others to build. It's just fantastic.
So the Discovery Hub has been a huge success. What does the hub look like in the future?
My hope for the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub is that it stands up to its test in time, that it doesn't date quickly, that it is architecturally significant long term, which I think it will be.
My hopes for the future of this building is to make sure that it is used by schools from all over Victoria and New South Wales to come and hear the story of Ned Kelly. It's here, it's on display, it's interactive.
I hope that many people come to visit it and learn about the siege site and understand the depths of the bushranger story from a different perspective, because that's what it is.
It's interesting with buildings. They should all move and change. We're part of the team that created the building, but we don't own the building. Its life starts beyond us as soon as we finish and walk out off the site. It's important that it changes. It's like in the next 10 years, if I walked back in that building and it looked exactly the same, frozen in time, I'd probably be disappointed. What those changes will be and how it develops, that's really for the community and the people who use it.
My hope is that it puts Glenrowan and North East Victoria on the map, and it is a beginning. As people enter into this region, it's a starting point.
The Ned Kelly Discovery Hub is beautiful. You walk through the doors and you are sort of taken on the journey of what happened at the time. So to me, it's just the whole experience is just lovely, and the designers and everything have done a great job downstairs.
I think the Ned Kelly Discovery Hub has come to our reality and delivered on all desires that we had for an architecturally significant building that would tell a national story. I think the multimedia delivery combined with the interpretation that we've got, as well as the tower itself, the platform, and the experience that you have when you come here, has delivered on every aspiration that we had for this building to be.